Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name is Robert Whitelaw. I'm a licensed real estate broker right here in Santa Clara County, serving the area here since 1988, coming at you with what I think is going to be a very useful episode. And this is for anybody out there who's interested in buying at all, whether you are looking for your first home, you're looking for a new home, or you're looking for an investment property. This is going to be a lay of the land episode to give you everything you need to prepare adequately for the process. That's going to give you the kind of knowledge that you need to get the very most out of this. Gives you the power, puts it in your hands so that you're not just sort of being acted on by the process, but you're controlling it to the highest degree possible. Now, of course, if you'd like to reach out to me, you can find my website at soldbyrobert.com. From there, you can get an awesome home value estimate or start your home search. And that home value estimate that I have is also linked with tons of amazing data. It's really kind of stunning. There's no real commitment. All you do is go to the website, go to the top of the fold on the left-hand side and enter your address. It'll give you the value estimate right there, but it'll also list off all the various things that you would get if you decided you wanted to subscribe to that tool as a monthly update. And it is amazing. So feel free to check that out, again, at my website, soldbyrobert.com. Now, let's get into the meat of it. We've got 10, count them, 10 bullet points for you. I love how, as I get more into really trying to play by the rules of the podcast, you're supposed to have a numbered list, right? Of the top 10 list of whatever. So what we've got today is such a list, and it breaks down into what is almost the order in which you should do things. It's maybe a little bit of a blend at some levels, but I'll point those out as we go. But once this is done, you should have all the tools at your fingertips that you need to start your home search process. This is not going to include you found a house, now start looking at it. It's not going to include how to make an offer. This is focused on the preparation that you need to go through in order to really get the most out of this experience. And by the most, I mean find the house you want the most, that's going to give you the most, that's going to potentially give you the best financial reward. Because remember, you don't make money when you sell the house, you make money when you buy it. It's buying right that sets the stage for you to make money on that back end of selling that home. All right, so number one, first, determine your budget. Now, this one can be done casually right up front by simply going to a website, do a Google for mortgage, pre-qual, mortgage search, that sort of thing. And just by entering the amount that you want to spend and what your credit rating is, you can get an idea of what you might be able to afford or what those monthly payments would be. And if you take whatever that monthly payment would be and I think if you're trying to be conservative, triple it. And if you make that much per month gross, then I think you're okay. But we have further down here, get pre-qualified, but I actually think that considering pre-qualifying at this determining your budget stage is not unwise. In fact, if I were doing it myself, that's what I would do. I have several buyer clients right now, and we were in this preparation stage a month or two ago, and once they got themselves pre-approved, everything is just smoother. It's easier. You know how much you're going to qualify for. You know how much you can afford to spend. And you've done the math to figure out how much you want to spend. Because remember, there is a difference between how much you want to spend and how much you can spend. You may get approved for a ridiculous loan that is astronomical and will give you an insane payment if you max out that loan. But you can be more sane than that. You don't have to let the crazy flow and tide of the buying world push you into debt that is going to make you nuts. Make sure you're also building in a certain amount that you can save per month for those emergency periods of time when things may not be going so well. Don't tap yourself out. Don't take all the water out of your money well with your payments on your mortgage. Okay? And also make sure to include things like taxes, insurance, projected energy bills, right? That's another reason why it's always good to get the electrical bill from a house that you want to buy from the current owners for the past year, so you can, because if it's not very efficient, who knows how much it could be. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by the shiny things. You need to establish that budget. So up front, as before you even need to really talk to someone about getting pre-approved for a loan, figure out what your budget is and figure out what you monthly can afford to pay before you ever even do any of this other bank stuff, just so that you get an idea. Make sure to include how much you want to have left over each month and figure out what that number is. Next, getting pre-approved for a mortgage, as I said, is a key to this. And that's something that happens usually later, but in this particular context, I'm going to suggest that probably the first thing you should do, once you decide you want to entertain buying a house, just do it. It takes you 5 or 10 minutes on the phone or online. Talk to a lender. It doesn't even have to be the lender you plan on using. It can be any lender, because the same pre-qualification process exists for most of them. Just get a pre-qualification number so that you at least have a ballpark, so that you can then also limit any future searching you do to that financial level that you can afford. All right, number 2. Define your priorities. And I like to have people put this into 2 buckets: things you can change and things you can't, right? In terms of things that are most important to you. Lot size, you can't change that. House square footage, can you change it? Yeah, you can, but then you need to, in your head, figure out, does this deserve to go in the I can change it bucket or I'm stuck with it bucket, based on your willingness to take on construction type stuff, right? A side strategy is when you start looking for a home, you intentionally look for a smaller home on a larger lot with the intent of enlarging it, because by and large, you're going to find that what the home is worth when you finish doing that is quite a bit more, and you've built up an awful lot of equity. You've spent X amount of dollars and you've reaped back 1.5 or 2 times that amount, right? That tends to be a thing. We can talk about that in strategies at some other time. Prioritize the requirements so you can streamline the search and figure out what things you actually want to use to limit your search. Be aware that some of the things are going to be easy: bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage. These are things that are typically included in every listing, and they're going to be accurate 99.9% of the time. If you have far more subtle things that you really want, I'm going to suggest you not make them a limiting factor on your search for a couple of reasons. One, the reality today is that low inventory is a real thing. So you're not going to get a mind-numbing number of results. Use your own brain to filter out properties that might not fit some of these other priorities that you've established, because the reality is, I find that for some of the more obscure things that you might be looking for, real estate agents are really bad at accurately entering that information into the MLS. Bad information gives bad results, so don't rely on it. So define those priorities. Figure out the things that are must-haves, would like to have, that type of thing. And let it be about your lifestyle and things that will make you enjoy that property to the greatest extent possible, right? You don't want to compromise on areas that make the place where you live less enjoyable for you as the homeowner. Next, number 3, research neighborhoods. Now, this is one that I think is a big deal. It's also very tough for folks who are considering moving to a new area. But you can do an awful lot of research online to figure out different areas that you're interested in. And if you're an investor, if you're a person looking for that first home, if you're a person looking for the next home, understanding where you want to go is a big part of this. And I'm going to suggest that you get ground truth whenever possible. Be someone who has driven those areas, walked around those areas. You've visited it during the day. You visit it during the night. You've been there during weekends. You've been there during weekdays. You are very familiar with the ebb and flow of traffic, both foot and vehicular. And you get a feeling for what the neighborhood's like. Understand what you do and don't like. It could be architectural preferences. It could be you don't like neighborhoods where there's tons of cars parked on the street all the time or on other people's lawns. These are all things you need to make yourself aware of as you pick areas that you're interested in. Number 4, understand the real estate market. Now, this one is very tightly linked with another one that we've got down the list here in terms of creating a search, right? There is no better way to educate yourself on what's happening in the real estate market than to subscribe to something on Realtor.com or Trulia or Zillow or whatever, and get alerts when homes list. And some of them will also give you alerts when homes go off the market. For the absolute best information on this, you're going to need to reach out to a real estate agent. I know I have several different tools that do this for my sellers, and I try to have several different choices just so it can fit in with the lifestyle of my clients. but that's something I would leave to you. I have one great tool, for instance, that can alert you via text or via email. I love this tool. This is one I've started using with buyers recently. It's basically a house feed, and the feed is populated by your criteria for the house. It allows communication back and forth. You can reject houses. You can like houses with putting a star on it. You can do comments. You can even comment back relating to the text that gets sent, and whoever subscribes to that feed will see that text. So if you and I both subscribe to it, you and I will both see it, and I'll be able to reply to you in text. So that's amazing. That's a great tool. But it will help you understand the market as homes come on the market and exit the market. But getting sold data is a little bit tougher in many cases, and frequently you'll find you'll have to have a relationship with a real estate agent to do that. But checking that ebb and flow, and I know some folks that I've worked with will simply note homes they like in neighborhoods they like. They'll enter them into a spreadsheet, and then at some point they'll see that that home has disappeared, and they'll know that that home sold. And then once that process happens, they'll be able to look up what that home sold for, or with an agent's help, find out what that home sold for. Next, identify real estate agents. This one is interesting, and I've done shows on this before where we've talked about how to pick your real estate agent. Do not automatically pick the top 1% agent in your area, or the agent who has that claim on their card or on their marketing. Why? Because 99.999% of the time, the metric they're using to rate themselves as a top 1% agent is nothing you should care about. You shouldn't care about how many homes that agent sold last year, or how many homes they sold in 1997, which, once you get that top 1% agent notation on your card, it stays there forever. I mean, I know agents who are a top 1% agent in 1992 who still have that on their cards today, and they are nowhere near being a top 1% agent in any measurement. So first, be wary of that. Second, the metrics just don't meet any criteria that you would care about. It's often the total dollar volume of homes they sold or number of homes they sold. All you care about is, did you sell every home you listed? Did you sell it for more or less than the asking price? And how long did it take you to sell it? And there's very easy to identify data relating to all three of those metrics to figure out if that is a market-beating agent. Are they selling it faster than other agents? Take the average days on market in the market where that home sold and see if it's more or less. Average sales price. How often did this person sell for above or below asking price? And some people might say, oh, well, hey, that initial list price is an arbitrary number. No, it's not. If they listed a certain number and they're not able to consistently get what they listed it for, then one of two things is true. They're horrible at actually selling the home, or they're horrible at pricing the home. Two things you're going to want to know as a seller, right? So anyway, just be wary and understand that in today's world, as I've mentioned in past shows, you need to not rely on whatever marketing you're getting, because none of that is going to be in the agent's voice. I know I've talked about this subject 3 or 4 times at this point, but still, in fact, I've even started saving AI solicitations. I'll take screenshots of them and save them into a folder on my desktop, but I'm getting them all the time. The most recent one was a webinar on producing community page content using AI. So, and I've gotten ones for generating emails that reach out to clients that completely manage the nurturing process. If you give your email address, for instance, to a real estate agent, I would say with every passing week, there's a higher and higher probability that all the interactions, even ones that seem like you're interacting directly with a human being, are being handled by an AI. So just keep that in mind. You need to interview these agents in person, or at the very least do a video interview with them, say on Zoom or whatever else, on Skype, and make sure that you feel comfortable with that person's expertise, and check the voice of that person. If this certain level of authority seemed to exist in everything else that they were putting out there, but you just don't get that at all from their personal interactions, be bold enough to ask, hey, is all of your stuff managed by AI? Because I'm getting a very different vibe from you now than I got from everything else I interacted with you on. Okay. And figure out, and my strong suggestion is that you interview 4 or 5 different agents, and referrals are great. Don't rely specifically on folks who claim to be top 1% agents. I find that when I go out and I research quote top 1% agents, I find that in the metrics that I mentioned earlier, they underperform average agents. And that's not what you want. You want someone who's beating the numbers, who exists in the statistics that beat the average of the market. And that's where I like to focus my energies as an agent. Next, step 6, create a wish list. Now, we talked about this a little bit in terms of defining your priorities, but you want to discuss a detailed wish list of features that the home has. These are things we probably cannot filter out by a search. These are probably things a little bit more esoteric, but why is that important? If you've picked the right agent to begin with, and that agent is previewing properties, and as an agent myself, I go and see just about because so few list now, it is very easy for me to visit almost every home that comes on the market from San Jose to Gilroy, and get a look for them, a feel for them. And once you've created this wish list, it's not only a way for you to, in writing, focus on things that matter most to you, but it's a way for you to communicate to your agent what lights your fire the most, right? And that kind of a relationship is what you want with your agent. You want someone who understands what you're looking for and is showing you things most likely to appeal to you. Tip: if you start the process of looking, and we're not there yet, that's going to be another show, the process of actually physically searching for a home. If you find your agent constantly showing you homes that don't meet the criteria that you've determined either within your priorities list or your wish list, but they keep showing you things that don't even meet the most basic things you're looking for without any explanation, right? For instance, I may end up showing a property to someone that doesn't specifically fit in with or suggest we look at a house that doesn't specifically meet their criteria, but I'll pitch them why I think it makes sense before we go look at it. I won't just drag you to the house. I'll explain, hey, I realize that you said you wanted 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, but this one has 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, and adding a shower to a bathroom is a lot easier than adding a bathroom from nothing, right? Because when the city is calculating how many bathrooms your house has, they count it by toilets, right? So depending on the house, you may be able to add a shower to a second bath to make it a full bath. So anyway, that's the kind of thing. And you would hope your agent is creatively approaching what's out there, particularly when we have low inventory and your options are limited, by exposing you to things that you're not seeing at all because your search is saying, I only want 2 baths, but they're also, because they're agents that should know an awful lot about what's going on with homes in the markets that they serve, they know that there's this other home that's a 1 bath or a 1.5 bath that would fit your needs in every other way and can see a path forward to getting that second bath in there. That's the kind of, not innovative, but at least creative thinking that I think you should want and expect from your agent. Okay. Next, we just talked about creating a wish list. Step 7 is set a timeline. Now, a timeline is useful to have, but it's just a guideline. It's not something you have to adhere to religiously. And I say that because there will always be things that come up that throw your timeline off. And that's just an unfortunate reality of the real estate business. There are other human beings in the mix here, and they are going to throw wrenches, and you are going to have to catch them. Now, again, if you've picked the right agent, with experience, they're going to be able to anticipate potential problems and hopefully be prepared for them before they ever happen. I know that's always my goal, and a lot of this is about taking a read of the list of the agent on the other side and their clients to get a feeling for how squirrely things are likely to get. And I find that has helped me and my clients many times over the 35 plus years I've been doing this, to avoid problems entirely or to already have a plan to swerve around it when it crops up. So that's just something to keep in mind. The timeline is good because it helps you manage expectations, and at least whether it may get delayed a day or two, or even maybe even advanced a day or two, at least you know this next step is happening. The timing of it may switch, but this is the next thing that needs to happen. And that should be a very clear part of your relationship as you're working through your shopping process of a home or setting up, preparing for purchasing a home. Next, step 8, understand financing options. Remember, financing is a product, just like a car or a refrigerator or a dryer. It's a product. You are renting money, and the terms and conditions of that rental will vary from different providers. Make sure that when you are looking for that loan, you're not just talking to the big banks. You're not just talking to Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. You're talking to loan brokers. You're talking to credit unions. You're talking to a lot of different sources of money, direct lenders, right? Who don't sell their mortgages on the secondary market. Make sure you're looking through all of those. And right now, I'm not normally a huge fan of loan brokers, but I think right now, given how expensive loans are, loan brokers are a great way to go because of the variety of loan products that they're going to potentially be able to expose you to. So make sure you're exploring all of those when you're going through the process of evaluating who you're actually going to borrow from. Again, this doesn't need to be the same bank that you've gotten your pre-qualification from. You could get your pre-qualification online from Quicken Loans or Rocket Loans or whoever you want, and that should still be a pretty decent number. You may find it may vary a little bit when you drill down to the lender that you like the most, who's charging you the least for renting that money. But it's going to be in the same ballpark. It's not going to be a disappointing difference unless you haven't been totally forthcoming about your indebtedness or your credit rating or any of those kinds of things. Number 9, estimate additional costs. Your real estate agent should be able to help you do this, but you should be able to suss it out as well. Talk about additional costs associated with the home ownership process, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities. Get in your mind a feeling for how much those costs are going to be, and use that as a guesstimate tool to figure out what is going to be the cost, because just your mortgage payment is not it, right? It's that plus all these other things. And so many of my buyer clients, when I first talk to them, haven't even thought about what property taxes are going to be. And when the average home sells for $1.2 million, you want a budget for property taxes, because that's not a small amount of money. Okay, next, number 10, the final step is check your credit. We have some bonus steps here too as well. I guess 10 is just a really well-rounded number. Check your credit. It's important to get explanations from your preferred folks or the folks you're talking to about lending about the mortgage approval process. I can give you some insights into the mortgage approval process. Typically, pre-approval is one thing. Pre-qualification is another. Pre-qualification is something that can happen in 10 minutes over the phone. Pre-approval is different. Pre-approval is, I'm approved for this amount of money. And typically you'll find that approval doesn't come till much later in the process, till you're actually in contract. But getting pre-approved can happen, but it often narrows windows in terms of timelines for when you can get this loan done, that type of thing. So keep that in mind. You're going to want to understand what your credit rating is and understand what affects your credit rating. One little tip: once you've decided you're going to buy a home and you're going to qualify for that mortgage, don't buy anything. Don't buy a car, don't buy furniture, don't buy anything that isn't normal stuff that you buy all the time. Food, paying for your cell phone, those types of things obviously are all normal. Don't go to an extra expense. I have actually seen transactions where, in preparing to move into their new home, in that last week before close of escrow, buyers bought a ton of furniture to put in the new home, and suddenly their loan was not approved, and they had to return everything in order to get back into approval state, and it delayed close by about 10 days. All right, next, step 11. And I realized we were shooting for 10 here, and that's the round number everyone wants to go for, but I thought we'd call it 10, but over-deliver, right? Under-promise and over-deliver. Save for a down payment and closing costs. Now, you need to understand that closing costs are also going to be a part of this. In many cases, you can roll closing costs into the total loan, but again, it's going to depend on what your approval level is and what the cost of the home level is. You obviously cannot go over what you're approved for in terms of what amount you can finance, and it typically you're going to still have to cough up that money, because you still have to maintain a ratio, right? If you have 20% down, you still have to have 20% down. So make sure you've saved for those down payments, and explore strategies for savings plans to achieve that goal as quickly as possible. Number 12, get pre-approval. That's the next step after getting pre-qualify. Having pre-approval is the gold standard of offers. If you walk in with full pre-approval, that is a very big factor to tout as far as your agent putting things into the offer, making sure that the seller understands that you're pre-approved. Typically, if you're fully pre-approved, many buyers will not have a loan contingency because they're pre-approved. That even with a pre-approval, depending on what happens, that can still get withdrawn. So you probably still want to go through with some protections relating to what might happen with your loan. But pre-approval is obviously a more powerful persuader than simply being pre-qualified. I'll be honest with you though, it's typically what's coming out at the end of the deal. And if someone came in with a higher offer than you and they were pre-qualified at that point and you were pre-approved, my feeling is the person with the higher offer is still going to win that one. Finally, number 13, set up alerts. I think alerts should be way up at the top in terms of getting to know the areas that's when you should be setting up alerts so that you can see the properties. Setting up alerts on real estate websites and apps is going to be the way to, over time. And this is something you may start doing as much as 6 months before you decide to start actively searching for a home. Why? Because once you've tracked what prices are doing, what homes of different sizes are going for in all these various areas, and have that sort of internalized understanding of what's happening in marketplaces, you're going to know these markets a lot better than an awful lot of real estate agents do. So take that knowledge and make it work for you. Be that buyer who understands, well, the tendency has been, I've been looking at this now for a year, and I know that prices tend to peak during this time of the year in this particular market and drop as we go into these months. We're only a month and a half away from the less priced months. So let's go ahead and wait and start making our serious search then. Knowledge is power, and this just gives you another layer of power that you can wield to make your experience that much better and potentially profitable for you. Okay, now, in my opinion, if you follow all of these steps and move into your real estate buying experience, setting the stage with this level of preparation, you are going to be more prepared, more ready, and more able to save yourself money and headache than 99% of buyers out there. I unfortunately find that most agents don't try to prime their clients as well as this in terms of preparing for becoming a buyer. Because again, preparation is really the first step towards success. And if you define success as best terms, best price, least amount of stress to get the process completed, this is how you're going to build the foundation to make that happen for you. Now, I want to thank all of you for spending your valuable time with me. As always, the goal here is to leave you with more knowledge on the table than I take up in your time. I absolutely hope that we've accomplished it this time around. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you all next time.